Every creative agency has talent, and that's not what slows growth. What actually holds agencies back are the blind spots you didn't even realize were there. These blind spots quietly weaken your work, slow your team down, and cap your growth even if everything feels mostly fine. In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 blind spots I see in many creative agencies, from the small teams to the multi-7-figure teams. Fixing these will elevate your work and remove the friction that's been holding you back from sustainable growth. First blind spot, having vague or unclear briefs. So it's actually, from what I've seen, the number one cause of internal revision, having to go back to drawing board, having to spend long nights or over the weekend having to redo work internally before it's even presented to the client. And I'm not talking about client revisions, I'm talking about internal revisions. It's the reality that the team is guessing instead of executing because out of clarity of where it is that they need to be. What can fix this is having one clear source of truth for this project. Reference examples, creative brief, understanding and having the team really truly understand the big idea and articulating this in a really meaningful way and how the big idea directly translates to the client's objectives and how it's going to help them accomplish that. Without the team understanding where they are headed and what is going to be needed on this project, you are going to end up in a place where you have to directly be involved at every single stage of the project, or you're going to end up with revisions. Then you have slow or inconsistent creative decision making is the second blind spot. And ultimately, most often this is a bottleneck from the founder or a bottleneck from the creative director, most often again the founder. And this creates for the endless back and forth because the team didn't understand where things were. The reality, it's actually kind of falls into two different camps: over communication and under communication. In over communication, they're getting too much feedback too frequently, causing lots of confusion, or under communication, they didn't have the information that they needed and they just went off the rails and things weren't understood and they're not getting feedback in time. The fix is having decision-making criteria of where the project actually is going and having appropriate check-ins. So the reality of how I see this from a creative leadership perspective, you have, let's look at the timeline of a project. You want to invest quite a lot at the beginning, a little bit in the middle, and a little bit more at the end. If you think about this as a percentage perspective, you're going to spend about 60% of the total creative director strategy time at the beginning of the project, right at the launch, between that first 30-ish total percent of design time. Then you check in around halfway through the project, and then you're checking in when it's mostly complete, 75% complete of the actual work, the final deliverable, just to push that work just that little extra to get it to the final component. The reality is that if you start the project completely off kilter, so let's say that we are supposed to be going from San Diego to New York City, you need to make sure that you have the right direction that we are headed, because if you start the project headed in the wrong direction, it takes a lot longer for you to be able to course correct it. And if you're able to get it really locked in right at the beginning, it makes things a whole lot easier long term. Then the next bottleneck is a misalignment of what done looks like. So, and this is a failure to communicate on management's part, but the team needs to have a full, clear picture of what completed looks like. If they have different expectations of what the completed version looks like, then they are not going to really truly be able to deliver upon it. And it's having unclear quality standards. So here's the thing that I want you to be able to understand is that dependent on how it is that you are delivering the creative direction or the delegation of what it is that you're assigning to your team, and this is across the entirety of the team, not just creative and strategy, but the way that you actually give them authority. So what does complete look like? And there's multiple different stages of authority and completion. So I'm going to use a very simple context. So let's say that we are looking at researching something. So I want you to do the research and bring me back just the raw research, or the next stage of authority, I want you to do the research, I want you to summarize it and come to me with the conclusion that you came from that research. Or I want you to go do the research, I want you to come to me with the conclusion, I want you to determine exactly what the next step is going to be to solve for this problem. Or I want you to do all of that, come with a solution, come to me just for the yes or no, or I just want you to do it and then let me know what happens. It's really important that we have delivery clarity and visual alignment, and that the team is able to understand that they have to share rationale. If you are not sharing rationale or they are not sharing rationale, it creates a whole lot of confusion. Then the next piece is the team not actually owning the outcome. So the founder ends up becoming the safety net, and this is mostly our fault for doing this. So tasks get completed, but the problems remain unaddressed, or there was a checklist that was incompleted, or there were spelling errors, or there was issues, things that were not understood. And there should be true accountability rules, SOP checklists that really create for a lot of understanding. But here's the number one thing that is causing for this issue is, as the founder, we ultimately know that we hold responsibility for what we said we were going to do. And if we don't deliver, we have an ownership ourselves of it. And so because of that, we end up putting on our Superman or Superwoman cape, and we end up going in and saving the day. This actually incentivizes and creates for the wrong dynamic on your team. You need to not be the superhero. You need to not be fixing other people's mistakes. You need to allow for them to fix them themselves. The reality is that for me, and I'll speak from a first person's perspective, is that I grew a lot in my career, in my understanding, in my skill level by not actually having someone else fix my problems. I had to fix them on my own. And so it allowed for me to learn rapidly, it allowed for me to iterate faster, it allowed for me to be able to, frankly, in some instances, just suffer the consequences of my own failures to understand or being able to meet that specific moment. And it allowed for me to grow quite a lot. And you are doing two things. One, you are suffering yourself for coming in and being the superhero. And two, so is your team. Stop being that person and allow for them to take accountability and ownership. And then finally, there's a lack of creative and project process. So often I see that agencies are arguing that every single project is different, is bespoke, it's a special snowflake. And so there's no rhythm, there's no operational memory. The reality is that there are patterns for every single one of your projects. There are workflows that you should be having set up as templates. There are steps, there is a rhythm, and you need to set them up so that your team is following this rhythm, this system, this process, this step-by-step system that your agency should be operating under. And if you're not following some kind of system, no wonder there's chaos. And no wonder you're stuck with your face planted firmly against a glass ceiling. It is creating for a lot of bottlenecks. Once you identify these 5 blind spots, you'll start noticing how much faster your team moves, how much clearer your work becomes, and how much less you're needed in every project. But fixing blind spots is only the start. You also need a delivery system strong enough to support better creative work. And that's why I recommend you watch my next video, where I break down exactly how top agencies structure their delivery infrastructure to operate smoother and grow sustainably without chaos.